I think I should be getting an iPhone. Let me try this year's model. That's unaffordable. Let me try one from a couple of years back. Ooh, even that'll drill a hole in my pocket. Hey, but I think I found out the perfect iPhone for my pocket. The iPhone 6s from 5 years back. The iPhone 6s was released in 2015 but is still being supported by Apple with their latest software update and is one of the iPhone with the headphone jack. Combine that with the fact that it is available for just pennies today. Should I be buying an iPhone 6s in 2020? And for that matter, should you be buying one? Let's find out. As usual, we'll walk this phone through the 7 basic things that a smartphone should have to judge whether this phone is worth it or not. First up, the performance and specs. Alright, I know what you're thinking. A 5-year-old phone with 2GB RAM doesn't sound like it is worth it in 2020, and I was also skeptical about that fact until I tested it out myself by using it as a daily driver for 2 weeks. And the answer is slightly surprising. This phone can handle tasks pretty well but is mediocre in today's standards, and the lack of enough RAM means that there are a lot of forced closes of apps here and there. But for all the lack of hardware, this phone makes up with the software, which is one of the reasons why I considered making this video itself. This phone runs iOS 14 that was announced just a couple of months back by Apple, which means that it is still supported by Apple and will remain that way till next year. Also, the 6s brings all the perks of the iOS ecosystem. But I think you're getting my point. You shouldn't be getting this phone if you're planning to game on it or if you're a power user. The 6s Plus has a 5.5 Full HD LCD display and the 6s has a 4.7-inch Full HD LCD display. And being from 2015, it obviously doesn't have any crazy specs or any high refresh rates to flaunt about. That makes it a much better display than many of the low budget devices out there, and even a better display in terms of resolution than the 2019 iPhone 11. The iPhone 6s launched as the successor to one of the largest selling smartphones of all time, the iPhone 6. Even though the 6s wasn't as successful as the 6, it solved all the flaws of the 6 like the bendgate issue and so on. Structurally, it is much durable phone with the metallic back and a toughened glass. Design-wise, even though it is pretty old with physical home button that is actually clickable, Apple is boldly selling this design in their 2020 iPhone SE, and a lot of people are genuinely interested in this iconic design. These days, even super low budget phones like the Samsung A10 has a water drop notch and no bezels, making it a much smaller device and easier to use. This phone is also not water resistant, something to keep in mind as every iPhone that came out after this phone has been water resistant. It has a single bottom firing speaker which is not terrible but can easily be blocked off. This is again important because all the iPhones that came out after this phone had stereo speakers. This was the last iPhone that came out with a headphone jack, and there is an important use case for that we'll discuss towards the end of this video. And overall, I'll give it a 6 out of 10 in terms of audio performance. Both the 6s and 6s Plus have a single 12-megapixel f2.2 shooter at the back, which is not terrible but again nowhere close to today's standards. There are no fancy portrait modes or low-light capabilities, but the interface is as simple as it can get. Photos in well-lit areas are quite good, but anything less, it gets terrible. The 6s Plus has optical image stabilization, which helps in getting clearer picture in low light as well as stabilizing videos. The selfie camera is a 5-megapixel shooter and has nothing special to talk about. Overall, this camera unit will get you the job done, but you shouldn't expect anything more out of it. This is where things get terrible. The batteries always get worse as time goes by, and if you're buying an iPhone 6s, whether it is used or not, it'll ship with a battery that is 5 years old. The 6s has a 1715 mAh battery, while the 6s Plus has a much larger 2750 mAh battery. These batteries are already small compared to today's standards, and with the age, it is much worse. I struggled to get past even 3/4 of my day using my 6S, and even worse is the fact that it doesn't support fast charging, which means that it would take more than 2 hours to charge up the phone to 100%. And to add insult to the injury, there is no wireless charging as well. Overall, staying up in power with this phone is...
It needs a pain in my ass most of the time.
Being a 5-year-old phone, there is no flagship features in this phone like wireless charging or IP certification as we discussed earlier. One feature that I do love in this phone is the feature that you won't even get in the latest iPhones, which is the 3D touch. Alright, should you buy the iPhone 6s today? In fact, it is very hard to recommend this phone at any budget, especially because the support for this phone has pretty much ended. But there are a couple of interesting scenarios where I can still recommend this phone if you can get it for less than $100 or in India, anywhere less than 10,000 rupees. First one is for kids because you can get them the satisfaction of getting an iPhone for that cheap price. Second one is as an iPod replacement, since it supports all the new bits of software and has a 3.5mm headphone jack with which you can still put in your expensive headphones to listen to your music. Also, I would recommend the 6S over the 6S Plus given the fact that it is so much more comfortable to use in the hands if you can deal with the tiny battery. For all the others, spend a little bit more and go for the 2020 iPhone SE. If you go for the 2020 iPhone SE, you'll get all the benefits that you'll get with the 6S except the 3.5mm headphone jack and 3D touch, but you will at least be future-proof for the next 5 years.